All right, we are live. It is week 6 of the weekly AA meeting, Amateur Analyst Sports Podcast. We're going to have 4 guys tonight. Kyle Meredith is taking a week off. Sorry to come to everybody a night late. We had a few scheduling conflicts, but we're here tonight. We're ready to roll. Let everyone introduce themselves. Start us off, Serio.
Hey, it's me. I'm reporting live from the UCF baseball stadium. So say hello to Joe Rogers. He's on the Wall of Fame, and he's going to be guest appearing with me.
DB.
Hello, I'm drinking a beer. Surya, what beer are you drinking tonight?
I'm drinking a beer called Powerade, officially sponsored by UCF Athletics.
Oh, very good. Also, just want to announce that I'm doing this podcast in my underwear.
Oh, Trevor.
Trevor, I got a haircut for you guys, so you're welcome.
I honestly don't see a single difference. I'm sorry.
I didn't get a haircut. That's the joke. I need a haircut desperately.
I was legitimately going to be like, man, you look a lot better. It's good. I clearly had a few drinks.
I'm like, you need a refund. You look like shit.
All right, now that we've made ourselves laugh, but probably none of the viewers, we're going to dive right into the week. Start up as usual, let everyone talk about how they did on the picks this week. It's going to be some fun hearing how everyone but me did awesome this week, so everyone enjoy that. Sirio, start us off.
Pretty good week for me in college football. Let's see. I like to talk about what I did right and everyone else did wrong. It doesn't happen often. I was the only one that got Clemson minus 16. I didn't think BC would play that bad. I just thought Clemson would play really well. Notre Dame covered their spread, so I'm just going to keep jerking myself off with Notre Dame lube. Yeah.
Duty.
I'm going to be honest and say that I was in Tallahassee this weekend, and I was watching the games but did not really realize anything that I did except that I didn't hit on any of the straight-up picks. So I thought I did god-awful this week, but apparently I went 14-8 against the spread, so pretty excited about that. I'm not really particularly proud of any of my picks. I guess UF plus 9.5, even though I wrote minus 9.5 on the sheet.
I gave you benefit of the doubt on that one.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I guess I'll take Memphis. I was the only person who picked Memphis plus 10.5. I should have been ballsy enough, as I say every week, to just pick them straight up. But I was not. I guess I'm most disappointed just because Sirio loves Notre Dame and picks them every week that he won and I lost picking USC straight up. That was pretty terrible. Also, Penn State looked like garbage. So overall, I'm happy with the week, but I didn't know that until 5 minutes ago.
And you picked Arizona State straight up.
I did, and to be honest with you, I was at the Palace, and I really was. We'll get into it later about Utah, but I really thought that was going to be a good pick, and I did not look very good on that one.
Trevor, what you got?
I was the only one to go with Stanford. Everyone else picked UCLA with the upset. I think that was mostly based on the fact I think UCLA has had a lot of injuries, and I think they're catching up to them. I don't think that they're the team they could have been at the start. And I'm pretty disappointed Kentucky didn't get their W. I really thought that they would get against Auburn. Auburn obviously hasn't looked very good. I thought it was the year Kentucky would sneak one out. Didn't happen for them, so that's unfortunate. But besides that, it was an okay week.
Yeah, as I said to start, as far as spread picks go, everyone but me went well above 500, so pretty awesome week all around. I went 9-13. I keep going with my heart instead of my head on these, and it is failing me miserably. Another small note, we only 3 picks this week were unanimous picks. We got all those right. That was TCU, Oklahoma, and FSU, all to cover the spread, so go us for all agreed on one or two things.
Thank you, Trevor, for siding with us this time. Because you know we're all going to pick us every single week, no matter what. So I have to actually give you a non-biased congratulations, because I would have probably picked Louisville if I had no vested interest in that game.
Yeah, I mean, it was tempting. I'm glad I didn't, although I was beating myself up when I was watching the game, and then the second half happened. because the first half obviously looked like an entirely different game. And I know we get to talk about Dalvin Cook. I'm really curious to see what all you Knowles fans have to say.
Also, Palmer, can you actually read the records? I noticed that you didn't do that this week since you did so terrible.
The overall records, we're sitting with the idiot who's not here tonight, has not gotten a single one right all season. Sucks for him. He is 0-148. Trevor is 53-61 on spreads for the season. Myself, I'm 64-84. Sirio, who did not join for the first week, has a few less games overall. He's at 59-74. And Doobie is sitting right at 500 at 74-74.
That's impressive.
And since Kyle's not here, Doobie is kind of the leader in the spread picks at the moment, but he is also definitely the leader in the straight-up picks. He's 129-32 in that. So cheers to Doobie on that one.
It's pretty impressive, honestly.
Yeah, that's good. Not a winner, but not a loser. Let's just make sure we.
I sound impressive now, but just wait till we get to the NFL picks.
Yeah. Also, that does put Doobie at straight-up picks at over 80% accuracy on the season, so I gotta give him props for that. It's pretty good. Move in to our usual topics. Start with the most disappointing college football team of the week. Sirio, take it away.
So mine's kind of a split between my most disappointing and most impressive.
Are you gonna pick another team that beat a ranked team as your most disappointing team this week?
Have I been doing that?
You did that like 4 times.
Yeah.
Oh, well then guess what? The trend continues.
Your mind works in strange ways.
Memphis was impressive in that Ole Miss was very unimpressive. So my most disappointing team was definitely Ole Miss. They looked terrible to lose to a Memphis team.
So that wasn't the same thing. You've been picking a team that beat a top-ranked team as your most disappointing.
Oh, as my most disappointing?
Yeah, you've done it like 3 times.
Yeah, you really have.
Memphis beat Mississippi, beat Ole Miss.
They weren't your most disappointing team. The Ole Miss was your most disappointing team.
Oh,
You've been picking, like...
Hey, I don't need a rationale, okay? They're disappointing in my heart, okay? My feelings.
To you and whoever that guy behind you is as well.
I hope there's no coaches here, because I'm going to sound like a freaking retard.
Okay, Doobie, who's the most disappointing for you this week?
I got to go with UCLA. As much because they actually looked bad in that they messed up my status as the sage of the Pac-12. I've been picking up a straight-up upset every week. I honestly thought this one was the most likely one, and I was trying to get to my preseason prediction of Stanford being 10-3, yet winning the Pac-12. And I thought this would be one of the weeks they lost. I was incorrect. Stanford, I think, may not lose again. They might actually be a solid team, and they might make things very interesting for the college playoff. So disappointing UCLA, although I guess we all shouldn't be. They have a freshman quarterback, and they'll be very good going forward. So, but they are my most disappointing team.
Trevor, what you got?
So I still like to do the literally most disappointing, and so for that you gotta go Michigan with that huge play at the end of the game. Watching the heartbreak on all the Michigan fans' faces. I have nothing against Michigan in particular, but that was hysterical. Ole Miss is the obvious choice probably for me, and this is a homer pick, but I think you could pick Georgia even in a victory. They just didn't look very impressive at all, given Mizzou has good defense, but if you're looking for a bounce-back W, that probably wasn't it.
Yeah, beating Missouri 9-6 at home on homecoming was pretty rough.
Right.
The Michigan play, I actually, for some reason, I'm an idiot and didn't put this on the agenda because we should be talking about this. So we're going to throw it in right now. But you talk about, like, miracle plays, like, so many things have to go the exact right way. So many things on that play had to work perfectly. A bad snap, the punter bobbling it, hitting as he tried to punt it, the ball falling into the Michigan State player's hand, then Michigan having a few chances to tackle him, not getting on. I mean, it was just it was an unbelievable event. Every single part of the play was insane. It is the worst beat I think a team has suffered since, the band is on the field?
I can't imagine. I was talking about this with my dad right after it happened. Literally, I can't think of anything. Even Cordell
Auburn,
Stewart.
Alabama.
No, not even. I don't think the probability, because Auburn still had a chance to win that game. This game was in hand, and then that happened. Even the band is on the field. I don't think that anything equals this in history. The only thing that maybe comes close is the Cordell Stewart 80-yard Hail Mary that Michigan suffered again. But other than that, I really can't think of anything. Everyone names the Flutie Hail Mary, but that's not even close to this.
I mean, it's a Hail Mary play. It's throwing it up at the end zone. You have a chance. Like, this is...
The only reason I named the Cordell Stewart is because when you're on the opposite 20, no one believes that that's ever going to happen. So maybe that tops it. Other than that, this is just the most... I don't blame anyone on Michigan, except maybe Harbaugh, because why is Michigan even covering that punt? That makes no sense to me. They should have been in punt black formation, ready to jump on the ball. But other than that, you can't really blame the punter. He's trained to try to kick the ball if he drops it. It's at the end of the game, you can't expect him to just disregard his training. It was just a terrible for them. I feel really bad.
On that last point, I keep seeing these people, why didn't he just fall on it? Well, the clock wasn't over, and that was field goal range, and it was a 2-point game. So falling on it actually is not what he needed to be doing, right?
To be fair, it would have been a 58 to 60-yard field goal.
Okay.
Falling on it would have been smart, but it's a low snap. The coverage was already in the backfield by the time he was able to.
It was getting blocked.
It's way easier to say, "Oh, you should have just fallen on it," than it is to actually do it when it's a bang play. I think it's disgusting that people are like saying death threats. Obviously, that's always going to be disgusting, but mostly because I think they're just wrong. Like you said, I just think it's a tough play. It's not really his fault. You would have loved to see him field that cleanly, but it's a tough snap. Those things happen. It just sucks that it happened in that situation in that time in the game. And he had an 80-yard boot earlier. I don't know.
Yeah.
He would have had a remarkable game if it wasn't for that play.
And his life story is pretty insane. Like, he was an Australian football player. He has 2 grad degrees. Like, that kid, he'll be all right. But I will say I don't agree. I think it's in the politically correct era we're in that now everyone in the media is coming to the defense of this. Like, how dare you criticize this kid? And someone sent him a death threat over Twitter. Like, and I know this is going to sound like a homer thing, but Jameis Winston got death threats literally every 2 minutes on Twitter, and I didn't hear ESPN freaking out over that. Every big athlete, LeBron James probably gets
that's still wrong.
But
I think it's particularly wrong at the college level.
I completely agree that it's wrong, and I'm with you.
Because ESPN were douchebags with Jameis doesn't mean that it's okay for them to be douchebags with Blake O'Neal. But I do agree with you. And this gets back to what you were talking about with the way I think it was you. Or it might have been you, Stereo. I can't remember. But when we were talking about the way the media paints different guys, and they're going to talk about Jameis in a different way than they talk about other people, and that's not necessarily fair. I think that's valid.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that. I'm not trying to make it a Jameis comparison, but Adam Griffith got the same type of thing. I think it's just the day and age we're in that you're going to see Twitter. It's the same as if I was talking to my buddy on the street and said something ridiculous and heard me walking by. Twitter is now that. You can't take everything that's said on Twitter at face value just because someone tweeted that when they were hammered in the moment and it's an anonymous egg doesn't mean that it's a real
death threat.
So if they emailed him or sent anthrax to his house, then I'd be like, oh, that's a little extreme. Let's back
anthrax.
Well, you can't email anthrax, but
that's a big leap right there from email anthrax. So, Stereo, did I hear you say that you think the Bama one was actually worse?
Yeah, I think so. I do. Or not me. Well, not worse, but comparable.
I feel like, though, on a long field goal, those get returned sometimes. Like, that's a foreseeable outcome. Auburn put a guy back there because they foresaw the possibility that they'd be able to return it.
If you look at it in the scope of just the play, but if you think about the entire thing where Alabama gets a second back after time expired, and they say, okay, we're going to line up, we're going to take this field goal. They kick the field goal, it's short, and then it gets taken back. In that sense, when you look at the entire situation, then I think that it's definitely, that is in recent memory.
That is true. I didn't even consider the fact that they got that second back. That does make a bit of a difference to it.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's some good improvisation to throw that topic in. I feel sorry for any Michigan fans watching. James Parker, if you're watching, sucks, man. Hate to be you right now, especially because your Colts get talked about later for also doing something really awful. So you're just having a rough one. We're going to move into most impressive team of the week. Serial?
So I'm going to have a three-headed most impressive team. First is going to be Notre Dame because I keep talking about them every week and they keep winning. And I promise I'll stop talking about them when they lose, but it's not going to happen, so let's go. Number two is going to be Oklahoma. I think to get a shutout, that really spoke volumes on how they're going to be moving forward. I don't really think of Oklahoma anymore as a really spectacular defensive team, but maybe I need to rethink it. And then speaking of defenses, my third is going to be Utah. They're looking absolutely, insane. We were talking about it before we went live that Utah probably will be one of the teams considered for a playoff spot. I think that they're really impressive week in and week out.
All right, we're going to move to Doobie, who hopefully knows that the word team is singular and not plural.
Well, thanks to Sirio, I do. Because I was going to name two, including Utah. I'm going to go with the complete homer pick here, Florida State. Right now, every week I see this team get way better, even if I'm looking at this impartially. They looked like garbage in the first half, and being at the game, I think that was completely because of game plan. We didn't try to get Dalvin Cook the ball. There was not a lot going on there. But maybe I'm completely off on that because in the second half, everything that didn't work in the first half was working to perfect execution. What really made me think that they are a very impressive team is that the depth of that team, that they're wearing out a team like Louisville, which is the best athletic-based team that we faced all year, guys going to the NFL, and they're really wearing those guys out. I think that Florida State is the most underrated team in the country right now. Everyone thinks that Clemson's going to blow them out of the water. I don't think that's the case. That being said, I think they're in for a tough game against GT because I think this is Georgia Tech's entire season. So I think that it's a very close win for Florida State, and it makes them even more underrated. And then going into Clemson, I think we see a big surprise. But then again, my opinion is about as good as someone who's never watched college football because I am so biased about this. But Golson, he looks absolutely incredible. Jameis Winston couldn't execute that offense better than he is right now. That's all I'll say.
That's just false. I'm sorry. I can't let you get away with that statement, Dewey. There's no way he's on Jameis's level.
The offense that he's being asked to run right now, there's no way that Jameis Winston, with the amount of pressure he's getting, could get out of the pocket and throw the ball away as much as Everett Golson has and not have sacks. Not get sacked. He should have been sacked 6 or 7 times. Then he made amazing throwaway plays and got it out of bounds before he got hit by a defensive lineman. There's no way Jameis Winston could do that. I'm just saying that the design of the offense, he has executed it perfectly in the past 2 to 3 weeks.
Sure,
I'm not saying he's better than
Golson. If you're talking about the play calls they're calling, I agree with you.
I'm just talking about the plays he's calling. He's not better than Jameis by any means. He's not even within the same atmosphere. But he is what he's being asked to do. Jameis could not do it better. No one. I really don't think any quarterback in the country could be doing it better. He is executing perfectly as to what he's been asked and what he's being given up front.
That's always been a good trait of Jimbo's, is catering the offense. He's run out different offenses every quarterback he's had. And I'll agree with you there. He's catered this offense to Golson's strengths, and Golson is improving weekly with it, so it's exciting to watch as we move forward.
Going back to what Doobie said about the team improving every week, I just wanted to comment on one position that FSU seems to be improving every week, the tight ends. They've been looking awesome. The one play that comes to mind is the Maven Saunders play where he gets to pass interference and still is able to drag both feet and make the catch. I mean, he's been looking absolutely insane. Izzo's been looking equally as insane. I think that that's been one big surprise as the season goes on. those two guys in the tight end position as a whole.
So is Kermit Whitfield at wide receiver.
Yeah,
the guy's been as steady as a rock. He leads the ACC in catch percentage.
He's the offensive player of the week for the ACC.
I will say, I'll agree. Surprising is Whitfield, but Sarah, you say it's really shocking about the tight ends. I think this is what they saw with the tight ends is that these guys are young, they're redshirt freshmen, and they knew this potential was there.
I meant improvement week.
No, they have improved over the season by
absolutely.
far.
Absolutely.
Maybe
I think that was
the right word.
That was the expected outcome.
Yeah.
I think this is very much what we thought we'd see about this point in the season from the tight ends.
I didn't. I absolutely did not. I think that they were too young, and I'm very impressed that they have especially Izzo. He's a big lumbering guy. He's been catching the ball like honestly like O'Leary did. I mean, I've been very impressed with him. Saunders is coming along too.
Yeah, Saunders only been playing football for 2 years now? 3?
Yeah, he was getting recruited to play basketball, and he came to Florida State for football.
All right, Trevor, now that we've put you through some Florida State talk for a few seconds.
I was going to say, actually, not carrying the bias that the rest of the group does, I will say that second half was really impressive. They looked about as good as any team I've seen. I noticed Golson and Cook. I didn't necessarily notice tight end player or anything like that. But those two guys look phenomenal, and it's going to be tough to beat them. Palmer and I, we'll talk about it later, but I think they look really good right now. My most impressive team, I think it's Bama. For me, I just after that win, I think they shut out a lot of doubters, honestly. I think people still are doubting because of the Ole Miss loss, and I think more and more they're just showing that was a fluke. They won, by 20, I think. And I think more than anything, their front seven's ridiculous. They had 6 sacks, 3 QB hurries. That's a very good defense. I think Bama's really tough.
Can I ask you this now, Trevor? Do you think that Bama can take down LSU?
I do. I think they're going to beat LSU.
Also, I have a second part question. Clemson and Florida State is the same day as Bama LSU. If everything continues, what is game day? And I want
it should be
for
Clemson
you.
Florida State because they're both undefeated. I
agree.
And Bama already has the loss. I mean, I'm more interested in watching Bama LSU, but it should go Clemson FSU.
I will say this, and this hurts me, but I think that Bama LSU is a much more important game towards the title picture than Florida State Clemson.
Yeah,
just
definitely.
at the end of the season. But at the time, that's probably the biggest game in the ACC's history, honestly.
Yeah.
Florida State Clemson that late in the season.
So you think it's bigger? You think because of the late in the season is bigger than 2 years ago, number 5 versus number 3?
Yes, only because it's November 7th instead of what was it, October
25th, I want to say.
It was exactly 2 years ago today, a few days ago. So it was around now.
Yeah, so you add 2 weeks to that. They're both undefeated. We're going to see some. I mean, I looked at not many teams are going to be knocked out by there, but it's later in the season. That's the biggest game in ACC history, in my opinion.
Also, the playoff changes things. Before it was like, only 2 teams get in. It's not as big for a conference to get in because a lot get shut out. Now when you're talking only one Power 5 is probably going to get shut out, maybe 2 on a rare year, it's an even bigger factor to me for the conference. So I agree with you right there. Biggest ACC game we've ever seen.
I mean, the other point that we mentioned is that whoever wins that one, they're probably going all the way to the playoffs undefeated, which is huge. So I think that's a big game. I think game day should go there.
Florida State's got Florida.
Yeah, Florida State has played Florida, so if Florida continues to do well, Florida could possibly be in the SEC championship game at that point. So that could be a very large game.
I'm still not convinced. I mean, I know that their offense did okay against LSU, but I know Florida's defense is very good. I'm not sold on their offense.
But who do they have left? Like Georgia, obviously, number 1, Georgia is good this year. They haven't been playing well, and it's a rivalry game, so you throw everything else out the window. But do they have another tough game? They have Missouri. Do they have any more tough SEC games?
Good question. I don't think. I mean, because we just had Mizzou, then we have Kentucky. Auburn's not that good. Georgia Tech, it looks like, is down. So, yeah, no.
Let's see. Florida plays left to go. Yeah, they only have Georgia, Vanderbilt, and South Carolina left in the SEC. So if Florida wins that game, they're going to the SEC championship game.
And you got to think at this point, no matter what happens in the next couple weeks, Florida's going to be favored by 10 plus.
I don't think you ever favor that game by 10 plus. It's just that's such a.
I'm saying, let's say you had no rivalry involved. That's a 10 plus game for Florida. Florida looks like, in my opinion, one of the best teams in the country.
At home, yes. Neutral site game. Both teams coming off bye week. I don't think I'd put a line any higher than like 6.5 on that.
Also, the history of the past few years of Florida being awful and still beating Georgia is just you can't. And I'm not trying to say that insultingly, but I hope that Georgia can play that spoiler role this year.
I do too, but I just have a sinking suspicion that it's not going to be pretty. Honestly, I'm projecting right now Florida to win by at least 10, if not 14 plus. I hope that I'm wrong, but I don't know. We just struggled against Missouri, and I do think Missouri's defense is pretty good, but we were offensively inept. It was nice to see the freshmen show up, but I don't know why I'm blanking on his name right now. You know who I'm talking about, Palmer, the 5-star receiver.
Terry Godwin.
Terry Godwin. There we go.
I think he
had a nice game,
his name, but I'm not positive about that.
Well, yeah, I don't know. We should move along.
Yeah.
and just real quick, I don't want to hold up conversation too much. And if you were going to say something about Georgia, go ahead. I don't want to interrupt.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say about Georgia real quick that if they do beat Florida, they pretty much only have to beat Auburn and Kentucky left to still win that division in the SEC, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Which they still could. That team, it reminds me, being a homer again of Florida State. If you get Michelle getting in there, getting some reps, he's getting in there, looking like Chubb did last year. There's no doubt that they are talented enough to still win that SEC championship game. But what I want to say is there's really, in my opinion, no stumbling blocks left for Utah. USC, they've got them this coming weekend. I think they've been proven to not really be what anyone thought they were. But, that's at USC, so that could be tough. Other than that, it's Oregon State, Washington, Arizona, UCLA, and Colorado. I don't see them losing. I think they're going in undefeated, and I think they're the number one team unless Stanford can beat them in the SEC or the Pac-12 championship, which I think is a very high likelihood.
Wait, you said you think they're going to be the number one playoff team?
If they go undefeated.
So we're going to move right in. We had a different topic up next. We'll move it because the topic after that was going to be playoff prediction. So with those comments, we're going to move right into a right now, not who would be the 4 playoff teams right now, but who are you predicting at this moment will be there at the end of the season. So, Sirio, start us off. We know one of Doobie's already, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to say, let's see, I really wasn't ready to be put on the spot for this. I'm going to say Utah.
You've had the agenda for a day, so.
Yeah, that's true. Still doesn't change the
99% preparation.
I'm going to say Utah. I'm just going to be a super homer and say FSU makes it through. Hell yeah. Notre Dame and Alabama.
Doobie, what do you got?
No comment from Palmer.
I would love to hear how you explain that scenario working out.
We're going to get back to him. I'm going to go ahead and see the kind of teams you get.
But I'm not going to go with Utah actually in the playoff because, like I said, I think Stanford beats them.
I thought you were going with Stanford, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Stanford. So my number 1 seed is LSU. My number 2 is going to be Stanford. My number 3 is going to be Ohio State, and my number 4 is going to be Florida State, even though Florida State's undefeated. I think that Ohio State still could lose something here, but I don't think it impacts it. It's so tough to say right now, that Big Ten, but I don't know. The Big 12 is also good. I'm so conflicted saying Baylor and TCU are out, but I feel like someone's going to beat someone up there. If I don't have Ohio State in, I have Michigan State in, but right now I can't even comment on it. It's too tough. my three that are solid: Stanford, LSU, Florida State. The last spot could be either the Big Ten or the Pac-12.
So you have Stanford ranked ahead of an undefeated Florida State team in the playoff ranking.
Absolutely, 100%.
With a loss to Northwestern, who's not going to be ranked.
100%.
Interesting. All right, Trevor, what are you for?
Is it interesting considering what happened last year?
I think it's a slightly different scenario, but I know where you're pulling from that.
I really just don't think it's. I think we're going to win close, and the Gator game, that's going to be another close game. And we'll probably struggle in the ACC championship. Florida State's not getting any leeway, no matter how good their wins are. I think Stanford's ranked way ahead of them.
All right, Trevor, who you got for your 4?
I got Michigan State. I think they beat Ohio State. I think they get in the playoffs. I can't decide Clemson or FSU. Honestly, I want to say Clemson, but FSU looks really tough second half. It seems like they're just improving. I think Clemson's a little beat up. I could easily see FSU pulling that out. I think Baylor will get in, and then I think it'll be Bama over any Pac-12 team. So that's what I got right now. But it's kind of tough to project because that does anticipate Utah losing. They're going to have to lose if they get pushed out. I think we were talking about that a little bit earlier. I disagree. I could see them easily dropping that game against USC. I could see them dropping the game against UCLA. I could even see them getting beat at Arizona. That can be a tough place to play sometimes.
We'll see if Rick Rod's still coaching at the end of the season.
Yeah, well, we were mentioning that rumor. We think he'll be going somewhere, whether it's Virginia Tech, Beamer finally leaving, or West Virginia was the one I heard, also possibly South Carolina.
Who is that?
Rich Rod.
Rich Rod, okay.
All right, Sirio, we're going to move on without an explanation on how the hell Notre Dame makes the playoff. I don't want to look at you right now.
Undefeated.
We're going to move into my go-to topic.
Hold on. Before we move on, just yes or no. If they go undefeated, do they make it in?
They lost a game.
Okay, no. Sirio is officially muted. He can't talk anymore. He's muted. No one can hear him. So we're going to move on to the next topic now. I haven't actually gotten to use that function yet. I'm really happy I just did. So we're going to move into my favorite topic, as usual. It's going to be the reverse Heisman. Doobie, we're going to start with you while Sirio's at timeout. We'll get to him last on this one. Who you got for your reverse Heisman this week?
I've got Clayton Thorson, the quarterback of the Northwestern Wildcats. Yes, I've been on a Mason Rudolph train, but they had a bye, I believe, or if they didn't, they did not play anyone of note that I could find a score. So Clayton Thorson's season completion percentage is sitting at 53.7. Granted, this hurts me a little bit because he's a freshman. You can't expect a lot out of him. But Northwestern was a legitimate playoff contender. And then the past 2 weeks, they've been beaten by a combined, I think, 78 points or maybe 68 points. I'm sorry. But he's just been really, really awful. He was 48% completion percentage for 125 yards this week against Iowa. But what is the most impressive stat I've ever seen from a quarterback ever? His yard per pass average was 3.57 yards. I don't even know how that's possible. Bo Schembechler couldn't even run a running back to that stat. That's absolutely incredible. His quarterback rating goes down every single week. Northwestern, I did pick Iowa to win that game, but I did not think that Northwestern would get blown out like that. I mean, I have no idea what's going on, honestly, with Stanford losing to them and looking as good as they do. Are they the Ohio State of this season, or what's going on? But Clayton Thorson has been god-awful as a freshman quarterback.
I just got to ask, how much time did you spend writing that Bo Schembechler joke?
Literally, I've been drinking a lot, so it came to me. Most of the things that I say come to me on the spot. I read a book about Bo Schembechler. It was called Bo when I was in middle school. Really came to like the man, and now I often reference him in my day-to-day life.
So it's booze in middle school reading right now. That's
I think
the news of the day.
I think that shows how twisted my upbringing was. That my middle school chosen reading was Bo Schembechler's autobiography.
Sirio, any comments on Bo Schembechler?
You got to unmute him.
No, I know. I guess he doesn't have a comment. Trevor, who's your reverse Heisman?
I like his response.
This isn't a season-wide one necessarily, and it's kind of unfair because I just was talking about how good Bama's front seven was. But Kyle Allen was 20 for 40 with 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. It's just hard to win with a line like that. So he's probably the guy I'd go with. That's a big game. So I'm thinking, my thought process was basically there are Heisman moments. This is like a reverse Heisman moment. It's not really showing up in the big season-defining game. So that's the guy I went with. We already talked about Blake O'Neal. I don't think it's his fault necessarily. And the other guy I was looking at is, Ole Miss. I tried to find someone on their team, but Chad Kelly actually had a decent game.
All right, Sirio, welcome back. Do you have a reverse Heisman for us?
Well, I'm really upset with what Trevor just said for his last sentence because Chad Kelly was going to be my reverse Heisman. So with that, I'm going to go with
He threw for 372 yards.
On the Gatoroids. Reverse Heisman. That's my guy.
You going Will Greer?
Yeah.
Seriously, how are you going to go with the guy that threw for 372 yards?
Because he lost the game.
Do we need to mute? I think he might go. You're getting close to another mute there, Sirio. You might want to.
I do want to. I'm going to try. Sirio is my boy, so I'm going to try to save him here. Does anyone think that UF would have won that game if Will Greer was playing?
I'm not going to say I think they would have won. I think they're in a position to win.
I think they would have won. Am I muted?
No, you're on, Sirio. You're good.
No, I do agree with Sirio. So I think that was a decent pick because although Treon Harris played, I think, about as well as he possibly could have, I think that if they had the opportunity to throw the ball a couple times to different receivers than they did in the short game that they had to stick to, they probably could have won that game.
If you guys can say that UF deserved to beat Bama but did not deserve to win with Will Greer under center.
You mean LSU?
Yeah, what are you talking about Bama, dude?
LSU. When they beat Bama. I mean, I'm sorry. Now I'm just getting all confused. When they beat.
All right, Siri's on mute again. This is getting too much. I don't know what to do with him at the moment. He's getting out of control. We're going over time, so we're gonna have to switch up topics. We're gonna move into a conversation that's been all over social media. Florida State fans have been involved a lot. It's Fournette. It's Leonard Fournette versus Dalvin Cook. It's not who's the better player. It's who has performed better. Sirio, I'm going to give you a shot for redemption here. You're going to start us off with the Cook versus Fournette debate. If the mute will turn off, like I'm trying to get it to turn off. But yep, all right, we got you. So what do you got for us, Sirio?
It's Fournette with a landslide. And the reason why I say that is because Dalvin Cook has had problems with fumbling the ball. They're both really, really identical.
Now we're talking this year, by the way.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
this year.
Okay. Well, then that's new. I still put Fournette though, and I'm sure Doobie will want to harp on the FSU offense, so I'll let him do that. But just going real quick, LSU compared to FSU offense is by and large a product of how good Fournette does, whereas FSU can sort of get away with some stuff. If Cook is, for instance, sidelined with a hamstring injury, as seen, we can still find ways to move the ball. Not as effectively, but still find ways.
Doobie, what you got?
I got to disagree with literally every single thing you just said right there. Even if we go back to last season, other than Cook's...
Yeah, but we're not talking about it, I guess.
No, I'm just saying,
changing the rules on me.
Even if that was your basis for Fournette being, and by the way, I think Fournette's better than Cook this season. But even if that was your basis for that argument, over 200 carries before last week, Cook was outperforming Fournette in every single category. But what I will say is that for the team and for what's happening right now, you have to give Fournette the edge. I mean, the guy's stats are out of this realm.
That's
I mean,
what I
other
said.
than Barry Sanders. But what you're not considering is the fact that his offensive line is probably 2 to 3 times better than
Yeah,
Florida
that's
State's
true.
offensive line.
That's true.
The article that
But
did
then
so,
you can't say last year. You can't bring last year into it.
No,
because
I
last
only
year-
brought that in because I thought that's what you were saying when you said Fournette was better.
No, I did the complete
Well,
opposite.
then let's just disregard that. If we look at the article that came out by SB Nation today, it was saying how much more explosive and how much more impressive Cook has been over this season. Basically, if you go within 4 yards of the carry, so 4 yards of the handoff, 100% of those yards are given to the lineman, and then 5 to 10 yards, you give 50% to the lineman, and then after that, 100% are given to the running back. Dalvin Cook, after 10 yards, is averaging, or including that 50% from 5 to 10, is averaging 11 plus yards per carry. That's, I believe, 5 yards more than Fournette, who is number 2.
When you're finished talking, let me ask you, how much do you think the off-season incident is holding back the media coverage for Cook?
Absolutely none. I don't think that plays anything into it right now.
I've
think
seen
that
3 ESPN articles this week saying Cook is the number 2 Heisman candidate in the country. So
yeah, I don't think that's playing anything into it. I will say that Florida State's Fournette.
Okay.
I will say that Florida State's standing as what they are seen as the number 9 team in the country, despite being undefeated and being in the playoff last year, is affecting him. But if Florida State beats Clemson and LSU loses to Alabama, I think Cook and Fournette switch positions, and I think Cook is absolutely the number 1 Heisman candidate. I don't think that it's playing in right now. That being said, as soon as he becomes the number 1 Heisman candidate, I think that immediately that is the biggest story everyone talks about, and it is not even close. We're all talking about how did Dalvin Cook hit that girl? Did anything happen? I just don't think he's a big enough name yet. And when he becomes that, Florida State will get their time in the news, because if we're good, we're only good for ESPN if we can be a negative story to get viewers in.
All right, Trevor, we're gonna move to you on Dalvin versus Leonard. What do you got?
I'm largely going to defer on this question just because I haven't gotten to watch Cook as much as I'm sure you guys have, and I have seen Fournette. He obviously has looked really impressive. The one thing I would say, and the one element I'd like to introduce in that conversation, is that I think Florida State's schedule to date is also hurting Cook's reputation a little bit. If you look at it, honestly, I think Boston College probably had the best defense you guys played because Louisville
Boston
this year.
Boston College has the number 1 run defense in the entire country.
And he didn't have necessarily a great game against them. Was he hurt? Was that when he got hurt? I know he's been dealing with
it was the next week. They just had a really good run defense and shut him down.
But to be fair to you, if we're talking about Cook exclusively, I agree the schedule does hurt him. But if we're talking about run defenses, Florida State has faced, on average, about a 30 ranking higher run defense overall than LSU has. They faced terrible run defenses all season.
No, I mean, I made this argument when Chubb, before he got hurt and Georgia canceled the rest of the season, I made the argument that Leonard Fournette's hype was getting completely blown out of proportion because they hadn't played anyone with a decent run defense. I think that was true up until the point they played Florida, who has a pretty decent run defense, although I haven't looked at their F rating this season. But I think they're just a name, and so I think once FSU plays Clemson, you're right. That's going to be what determines going forward Cook's reputation. Absolutely. And I think that's how it should be, really.
Yeah, I agree completely. It really is not fair to rank Cook, except for that everyone should respect the guy going out on 1 hamstring and performing like he has. But you can't put him above Fournette until he goes up in a real big game and performs like he has in the small games. No,
I agree. And, I mean, that also doesn't take anything away. Anytime you have these performances where you're putting up over 200 yards, I don't care if you're playing, the 50 worst run defense and then that's CAA, they're still going to be good players. Maybe not the best players, but a guy to go out and do that sort of thing, you got to be talented, It's not like if you put me in pads, I'd go and get 100 yards against the worst defense, obviously. It still takes a lot of talent, and Cook has that to spare. I mean, the guy is impressive.
So on a week that I thought we'd finally be under an hour since we're a man short and didn't have a lot of off-topic stuff, we have gone for almost 45 minutes on college football. So we're going to have to move on to NFL now. Skipping one topic and not doing a preview of next week, which is fine because next week does not have a lot of good football games in general. So maybe we'll actually finally
at Richmond, I believe. So I think
they went to JMU. I thought
James Madison.
Yeah, Richmond versus James Madison.
At James Madison. So we're gonna skip the preview, move right into NFL. It's gonna be a quick NFL. Maybe we'll try to hit NFL a little harder next week since it's such a bad college week. Sorry, it's been a little lax past few times. We get a little passionate about our college football here. Started off as we usually do. This is going to be very quick, talking about the picks and our reactions to our picks, because our two resident idiots, Michael Serio and Perry Doobie, just straight up didn't make picks. They didn't post them. I just assumed I didn't see it happen. Turns out they neither of them posted. I'm going to put it to a vote for all the amateurs, but at the moment the plan is to say that they went over for the week, so they went 0-12 on the spread picks. There was one that wasn't counted because it was a push. Lucky them. And that they went 0-13 on the straight-up picks. We'll see how the vote goes. We'll let you know next week.
I want to comment on that real quick, very quickly. I don't know about Serio if he actually made the picks and forgot to submit them, but I think I deserve the 0-12, honestly. I'm voting against myself here. Because I knew to pick, and I didn't. I was just very busy and then went to Tallahassee, which is no excuse. So give me the 0-12.
I don't think it needs a vote.
I deserve no credit.
This is actually a pretty big deal because Serio had a dominant lead in the straight-up picks in the NFL that is going to pretty much get shattered with this. So, Serio, what do you have to say, man?
I think if Serio actually picked and forgot to send it in, then he deserves the benefit of the doubt.
I didn't. I looked and I didn't pick.
I asked Serio to check on his computer if he had anything saved, if he did anything. I tried this yesterday to save it.
I got everything right. So.
I actually thought about sending that in on Sunday and just like trying to remember who I did pick, but then I said that I would be way too biased for myself.
All right. So Trevor, anything to say about your NFL picks?
I loved how I picked the Chargers to keep it close enough to be disappointing, but not upset or anything like that. That's knowing your team, man. That's knowing.
This is the first time I did not pick the Chargers. Like the first time I didn't pick them to cover or to win, and they cover. Well, they don't let Green Bay cover.
They didn't win. Let's make sure.
But I haven't even picked them to beat a spread. I haven't even picked them with the points. Like I've been picking them with everything. I didn't this week, and I'm kind of upset about that.
That was in terms of reaction, though. I will say, and I know I talk about the Chargers every week, but I still just think it's amazing the numbers that Phil puts up. I think over 500 and no interceptions. That's crazy. I did hear that I think there were something like 17 guys that had thrown for over 500 yards, and it's 9-8 in terms of win-loss, which makes sense because you're throwing a lot if you're behind. But I think he's the only one that hasn't thrown any interceptions and still lost when he did that.
That's insane.
I think Philip Rivers deserves to be considered in the MVP conversation, honestly. I know his team's not winning, but it's absolutely insane what he's doing in losses.
We're going to have a near mid-season MVP debate next week, so I'm going to have y'all save your comments on that.
Yeah, but you know who's doing the same thing and winning?
We're not going to talk about Aaron Rodgers right now. We gotta move right along because I guess you'll be able to talk about Aaron Rodgers in a second. We're going to run through this quick. We're going to predict our division winners in the NFL. We're not doing wild card this week. We'll get to that next week. But Syria, who do you have winning the divisions in the NFL to make it to the playoffs?
Well, in the NFC North, it's going to be a really close one. I have the Packers coming out just by a smidge. AFC North. You laughing at my smidge?
No, I thought that was well executed.
Thank you. In the AFC North, I'm going to take. It's got to be the Bengals. I'd be crazy to say the Steelers, even though I think they do have a chance. It's got to be the Bengals. Let's just finish it up. I'm going to say Patriots over Jets. Jets are a wild card team. Texans make it out above the Colts and the Broncos. Those will be my AFC. Did I say the Packers yet?
I think you mentioned it.
We covered the Packers.
Okay. Well, just in case I didn't, Packers, they're going to come out of the North. Eagles, Panthers, Cardinals. Playoffs, Palmer is probably going to hate me for jinxing it, but I think the Rams are the first team out, and then the Falcons.
All right, Doobie, what do you got?
So in the AFC East, I think it's the Pats, although I think the Jets are maybe the third best team in the AFC. I obviously think they make the wild card, but the Pats win that division. Bengals, and this is going to sound insane, but they actually have a chance to go undefeated in the regular season, that is. They do not play the Pats or the Packers, and I don't see many teams stopping them. They are. I think they're the most.
Cardinals is their biggest one.
Yeah, I think they're the most impressive team in the NFL right now. I'm not the best, but the most impressive. AFC South, by default, the Indianapolis Colts. It's god awful because they're not a good team. The West has got to be the Broncos. Once again, a little bit better division because I think the Chargers end up with a winning record, but the Broncos still win that division based on their early performance. I guess at this point you got to default to the Eagles in the NFC East, even though I think the Giants could make a run at that. I think the Eagles are by far the most talented team. The Packers will blow away everyone else in the NFC North. And then in the NFC South, I'm sticking with it. I think I was kind of proven right this week. I don't think the Falcons make the playoffs. I still do not think that's the case. And I think that the Panthers are actually a very legitimate team, maybe win the NFC, but I think that the Green Bay Packers are way too good. But I think that's the NFC Championship game right there. But absolutely, I go with the Panthers to win the NFC South.
So I come back to find out Doobie's going through the whole playoff bracket, apparently. Not sure what happened there. But we'll move right along. Trevor, who are your division winners?
So in the NFC East, I got Philly, mostly because of what just happened. West, I'm probably going Rams, not super confident. South Carolina. North, Green Bay. AFC East, I got New England. West, I got Denver, mostly just because they haven't started losing yet, which I can't figure out. I thought that would have happened by now. North, I actually think Pitt has a chance. I think their D looks better than I thought they would, and Big Ben's coming back. And the South, I think, is interesting. I don't know. I mean, I think Houston might be the better team, but the Colts are probably going to win that.
I forgot to pick the NFC West. I'm going with the Seattle Seahawks.
So I don't think any of you. One of you picked the Rams. It's not going to happen. I wish. Our offense is terrible, even with Todd Gurley.
I'm the only person who didn't pick the Rams.
No, Syrio said they were the first team out.
No, yeah, I said they're the first team into the wild card.
Oh, that would be first. That would be second. That would be first team in. You said first team out.
Okay. Well,
wait,
I said you're going to be mad that I jinxed it. I think they're the first team in.
That's why I was really confused by the whole statement.
Okay.
But,
okay. I apologize.
We don't need to mute you again, Syrio. It's okay. All right, we're going to keep it moving. We're going to go into what I honestly, I'm not the biggest historian with the NFL, but from what I've seen in my lifetime, the worst play ever in the history of football. It is the Colts fake, maybe not fake. What the hell is this? Punt, but not punt, but let's snap it to a guy who's standing there unaware that it's going to be snapped to him play. If you haven't seen it, I doubt that's possible. If you watch this podcast, you probably watch enough sports. So we're going to just get everyone's reactions on it. I was baffled. I was yelling, what the hell is going on at the TV? It was the craziest thing I've ever seen. Syrio, start us off.
I didn't even see it until you texted us about it, and that's when I went back and looked at it. It was absolutely crazy. I turned it on, and the head coach was on the sideline yelling, "Why did you hike it? Why did you hike it?" And then I saw the replay, and it just was the most bizarre play I've ever seen. I don't know. I mean, it was stupid. I don't know what you want me to say.
So I'll prompt you with, do you blame the coaches or do you blame the players? Do the coaches blame the players for snapping it?
Well, I think that it was a set play. It was obviously a trick play that if they got a certain look, that it was, hike it and then some wrinkle came out of that, whether it was a pass to that giant wall or whether he runs to his left and tries to beat the guy to the sideline. Obviously it's the players are the ones on the field and they hiked it. Makes no sense. There were two guys over the ball and a third guy kind of playing on the first down line. Made no sense at all to hike it. I mean, I tried to think of how it could be a trick and how they could make it work. I'm at loss for words. And this is from the guy who said Notre Dame is going to make the playoffs.
Stuart, what are your thoughts on the play?
I just told you.
I need to get muted for that one.
You should have just said the exact same thing over. To be honest with you, my honest thoughts are, who cares? The Colts Patriots build up this week, in my opinion, was entirely non-interesting. I didn't understand it. I think that probably 7 different teams probably called out the Patriots for the exact same thing that the Colts did, especially the Baltimore Ravens the week before. So I don't think it was that huge of a game and what it was built up to be. That being said, I don't put blame on Chuck Pagano. I put blame on whoever that guy that took that snap was and decided to just dive into the line immediately. I watched it a couple times. He literally took that snap and then no one had hit him yet. He was just like QB dive, like it was 4th and inches. It made no sense. I think that the play probably had a much different design to it, and this idiot just went right into the line. Was it Matt Hasselbeck? Because if it was, I take everything I just said back.
No,
but
I thought
if
it was
any
punter.
Well, I don't care.
It was a wide receiver.
As long as it wasn't Matt Hasselbeck, I think it was the dumbest performance by an NFL player I've ever seen.
Trevor, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, I think you blame the players if that was really a play that was designed to have a read. But I am sympathetic to the idea that I conceptually have a tough time of even following what the coach was going for there with that personnel and that formation. We were talking about it a little bit earlier. You just trying to get him to burn a timeout in that situation, and if so, it needs to be made abundantly clear to not snap under any circumstances. And if you're actually trying to exploit the way that the defense is lining up, then you need to do a better job of reading. I'm not sure. So, I mean, there's a little bit of leeway in terms of where we allocate the blame based on what they were trying to achieve with that. But it was just bizarre. I mean, conceptually, I just can't understand exactly what they were looking for. And obviously to snap in that circumstance when there were 4 guys on the ball, crazy. I don't know. It was crazy. It was baffling.
So I think y'all said it all. There's a lot to go there. I mean, I just thought we had to talk about it because it was just one of the most ridiculous things I've seen in a very long time. We're going to move on now as ladies are running into playoff baseball. We are in the championship series. One game is at 3-1. One series is at 3-1. Is it still 2-2?
It's 3-2.
3-2 who?
Mets.
So
Wow.
Mets are up 3-2 right now, with a chance to go up 3-0 in the series. Cubs trying to bring one back. That's what we're going to start with. Do you see either team that's down right now coming back? So this could include the Cubs coming back tonight and getting a win, or even going down 0-3. Do they have a chance? And do the Blue Jays have a chance to come back now that it's 3-1?
I'd actually like to hear you comment on this first, Palmer, since you were the one who picked the Blue Jays to win in 6. Do you still think that they can?
No. Their hitting was there for one game. Their being home and hitting was supposed to get them back on track. I thought after the first game in Toronto, their hitters had gotten their groove. They showed tonight it was a one-time thing. I think this ends in Game 5. I think it's 4-1. I think Blue Jays are done. I didn't see the emotion from them. I didn't see it from them having the ability to do it. There's a train going by Perry Doobie that's very loud. But no, I'm out on them. I've lost the faith in them. I think Royals make it. So I'm definitely done on that. I think Cubs as well. Arrieta shit the bed when he had to do well. I think it's Mets. I think right now it's Mets Royals. That's what I got.
I'm actually gonna pitch my own prediction. My Facebook isn't working, but Perry, if you have it up, can you see who I picked or how many games I had the Royals Blue Jays series going to? I think it was 7, and I'm gonna stick by that if I did. But I think that the Blue Jays win in 7. When they hit, and they're just. I mean, you saw they're an unbeatable team just because they hit home runs and then they pile it on again and again and again. So I think that they definitely make it out. Stroman's looking really, really good. Price is obviously an ace. As far as the NL goes, I think the Mets have it. I really do. I'm watching them right now, and they're not playing well, but they're still getting the job done. It's just crazy how young they can be and how strong they can take every at-bat, every inning.
Doobie.
I disagree with you. I think you had the Royals. We didn't pick games, but you had the Royals winning. I also had the Royals winning from the beginning, and I don't see that changing at all. I think that a lot of this perception that people are judging them on is the fact that they didn't sweep every series like they did last year. They're the best team right now. In my mind, my prediction completely changes. I think the Royals win the World Series. I don't see any other team doing it. But I'm also going to change my prediction, and this makes me happy to say because I grew up a Mets fan and then bandwagoned over to the Oakland Athletics like a big Graham Morris asshole. But I think that the Mets win that series in a sweep. I don't think that the Cubs pitchers that they have lined up right now can contend. Daniel Murphy is suddenly Jose Canseco when he was on his highest cycle of steroids, and I have no idea.
Shout out Will Greer.
Yeah, shout out Will Greer. Go Gators. Go Gator. But seriously, I mean, the Mets they look like an unstoppable force, but when they face a team that has experience like the Royals do, I don't see them winning that game. But I think it's Royals-Mets, and I think it's the least watched World Series in the history of baseball as far as television ratings go, even though I will be watching every game if possible because I find it very interesting.
Trevor, what do you got?
I got absolutely nothing to contribute. Does Tony Gwynn still play? Is he still playing that?
All right, so Trevor's out on that. I already said what I thought was going to happen, so we're going to move in to part of Doobie's comments there. We're going to go on Daniel Murphy. Daniel, what is this his 5th straight game with a home run now in the postseason?
I don't think they were all consecutive, but I could be wrong.
I'm pretty sure he had 4 in a row in that entire record.
They absolutely are.
And now this is his 5th postseason game in a row with a home run. The Mets have not been blowing teams out, so when you're hitting a home run in each of these games, it's a big hit. This guy is out of his mind right now. He is absolutely leading the Mets. He's the MVP of the entire playoffs so far. He's trying to win a World Series on his own pretty much, with the help, obviously, of the Mets pitching.
If they go on to win the World Series, even if he did just hit a couple hits in the next few games, didn't hit any home runs, this has to go down, other than Madison Bumgarner last year and a couple others in history, as one of the greatest postseason performances ever. There's no way. I mean, 5 straight games with home runs that they probably would have lost half of those games. It's absolutely incredible.
A few of those games, he had a home run as well as like several other hits and other RBIs as well.
And
so, I mean,
that stolen base, they name it the greatest stolen base in Mets history. I mean, the guy has been unconscious, and I owned him in fantasy for 2 years. He has never done anything like this at any stretch in his career. He is not this guy. He's a very talented second baseman, but he's been more known for being a very good fielder and a very decent hitter. He is not Troy Tulowitzki. He is not anyone who's ever performed at this level. A middle infielder doing what he's doing has never been done before.
So let me ask this, because I was listening to this on the radio, and it was a really good point. Daniel Murphy can, I believe, opt out of his contract, or his contract expires as soon as the Cubs either win it all or get eliminated. If
Mets.
I'm sorry, the Mets. If you're the Mets, do you give him money that would bring him back if another team offers him a big deal, or do you, like I think, go for DeGrom, Matz, Syndergaard, and lock up the pitching?
As impressive as it's been, you don't anticipate it's going to happen regular season. He's never showed he can do this in a prolonged period of time. He's on a hot streak, and the problem with MLB these days is you'll have a lower market team that will pay this guy way too much, way more than he's worth. We've seen it so much in the past few years. I think the Mets have to hold off on that. You cannot give him more money than he's worth.
No, it's the Pablo Sandoval rule. Don't pay for a guy who can play in the postseason. And it doesn't just apply to small market teams. It's going to be a big market team, in my opinion. It's going to be someone who thinks they need a marketing boost, although Daniel Murphy is probably about as good a marketing boost as Bobby Bonilla right now.
He's good for, a month after the playoffs when he's been so hot, and then his name's gone. He's gone.
Sandoval to the Red Sox, I can understand. That guy sold in San Francisco at least millions of dollars of Panda hats a year. So that makes sense. From a business standpoint, you sign this guy, he ups your revenue, he does everything. Daniel Murphy doesn't have an animal that you can equate to him. So there's no reason to sign this guy, in my opinion. That being said, he is one of the top 3 second basemen in all of baseball. So I think it will be a good decision if someone can pay him at that rate. But if you have to pay him as the top second baseman in all of baseball, there's absolutely no way.
Trevor, any baseball opinions coming in?
Just that conversation about a guy that's playing out of his mind in the playoffs, and then whether or not you give him money. I think you're exactly right. That always happened to the Giants, it seemed, when they were going on those runs starting back in 2012. And I was looking it up because I know Marco Scutaro was one guy that it seemed like he had just a great postseason, but there was another one, and I can't remember. But they've had a few of those guys when they had the really successful seasons. And people would always talk about paying them money, and you just don't do that. I mean, baseball is a sport of averages, and you really got to look at their season-wide production.
And I think that speaks to why the Giants have continued to be so good, is because they've let the guys who don't matter go. Really, the only major names that they've kept on that roster are Bumgarner and Posey. And obviously, you can't let either of those guys go. But other than that, I think they would get rid of anyone. But
Siri, are you going to answer your own question?
Well, I said it in my question. I said I agree that you got to keep the pitching. I mean, that staff that they have, especially with how young they are, and just look, they have them in the NLCS when nobody had the Mets even getting close to the playoffs, and then they beat out the Nats. I mean, yeah, you're gonna lose one guy, but you gotta cut your losses, and you gotta go with locking these guys up long term. I pretty much agree with everything you guys said. I was hoping someone would disagree just to spark a conversation, but you guys are all good, smart kids.
Are the Mets and the Cubs, does anyone other than the Astros contend with those two teams going forward? I mean,
for youth?
No, I mean going forward. I mean those 3 teams are so far ahead of everyone else in terms of youth, talent, and everything else.
Well, the Brewers will be in the mix for sure.
To your point there, I don't think anyone as far as the next 5 years overall does. I think the next 5 years overall, you see those teams that have the youth now do well. I think each year you'll have a few teams contend with them, but you're not going to see somebody with that longevity over the next 5 years like those 3 squads are going to have.
The only team that comes to mind is the Rockies. They're fairly young, and they have a good core.
But they haven't proven anything. What's insane about these 3 teams, and mostly the Cubs and the Mets, and mostly the Mets, I mean, the Mets look so extremely scary, and the fact that their payroll is probably, honestly, half of what it could be if Bernie Madoff didn't scheme everyone out of their shit. The Mets really could bring in a top-level name in addition to what they already have. And I think it's extremely scary for the rest of the league. Sandy Alderson, in my opinion, is maybe the best GM performance I've seen in the past 15 to 20 years. This is absolutely insane that they're doing what they're doing right now, especially with all the hate that the Mets get as being the Mets. Billy Beane's done a great job, but Alderson this year, Theo Epstein this year, the GM performances, I don't know the name of the guy in Houston, but have been absolutely incredible. These guys deserve such an amazing amount of credit. I got to see those three teams as the pioneers of baseball going forward.
Do you have any prediction as who that big name the Mets try to bring in is?
I think it's Yoenis Cespedes. I think they pay him one of the biggest contracts in baseball.
And then also to your comment, Jeff Luhnow, Luhnow, is the current general manager of the Houston Astros.
Was he the guy who was involved with the Cardinals, but at some point?
Yeah.
Well,
that's him.
That probably makes sense. I mean, as we say this, that's probably what's going to happen. The Cardinals will win 2 of the next 3 World Series, even though we're all commenting on the youth and how great these teams are going to be. The Cardinals will probably win 2 of the next 3
They've been
World
the gold standard for a long time.
All right, so any more comments on baseball or anything else?
I hate Theo Epstein, actually, because he's the one that took Hoyer out of San Diego and brought him over to the Cubs. And that's just selfish. San Diego needed him way more.
All right, so I forgot to tell everyone else to do this. I'm the only one that posted questions for this week. The only question I got was about asking how the matchup would go between the Royals and the Blue Jays. Apparently the person posting it didn't realize that by the time this went live, that game would have already happened. So our opinion on it is that R.A. Dickey got his ass handed to him. Graham has joined us now. If you care to stay for the weekly beard rankings, if not, you can stop watching this podcast. But Graham Moore is here to give us his weekly beard rankings. I have a feeling, I know that Perry Dewey's probably going to win it all, but we'll see what Graham has to say.
I got to come out on top on this one.
Hey, thanks, Palmer. Really appreciate it. Just wanted to say, coming in fourth, it was kind of tight. I do want to give props to Doobie for the effort. I can't tell if it's an actual mustache he's trying to grow.
Hey.
That's just a shadow from his hat. So coming in fourth is Doobie. Third is Palmer. Palmer, looks like you probably had a job interview or something this week and had to shave that up. It looks good, but from a beard ranking perspective, it's not where we need to be.
Job interview done, job acquired, and it will be growing back out for as long as I can the rest of the semester.
Good. I'm excited for these rankings to change. I had sent preemptive rankings earlier, but you know what? I think I'm going to have to go back and change these. We're going to go second with Cereal. It looks good, but you know, at some point you got to change things up and you got to make it different. So number one ranking this year is actually going to go to Trevor. Looks really good. Winter's coming, and Trevor looks really prepared and well groomed. Can't say anything about the haircut, but the beard does look good.
Can we all agree?
I spend a lot of time and effort sitting on my ass growing this thing out, so I really appreciate it when people give me respect for it. You know.
Can we all agree that if anyone was still watching this, the by far best segment of this entire podcast is Graham's beard rankings?
Oh, it's fantastic.
Like, not even close.
It's the only one where the speaker shows like a core competency, honestly.
If anyone watches to this point, please let me know. Like, I actually want to know who is paying attention. Obviously, Graham is our only live viewer, so I know we have no live viewers at the moment. We were up in 3 or 4 throughout the podcast, but toward the end it went down to 1. It was clearly Graham. But if you watch it later on,
I had 3 different browsers open. That's what I had.
Graham is loyal. That's why he gets to come on to our beer rankings. Also, they're phenomenal and hilarious. If you watch to this point, let me know, because I just want to know if anyone actually bothers to.
I'll probably buy you a beer, honestly, if you watch this whole thing.
So if you know Trevor, I hope you watch this long. If you live in Athens, if not, he'll Venmo you a beer. I don't know if you can do that, but you should be able to. Any parting comments from any of our amateurs for the night? Looks like no.
It's just too bad that Georgia had to cancel their season. That's all I'm going to say.
It is.
I'm wearing underwear.
Okay.
All right, we should probably log off on that.
Yeah, all right, now that I have to change the rating of this podcast, everyone have a good night. We'll see you next week.